Passengers to the ER.
Do these guys have any idea what they are talking about?
Get squared away.
Spiritual.
Get squared away.
Emotional.
Get squared away.
Mental.
Get squared away.
Physical.
The podcast that'll help you get squared away.
All right, we are back here with a little special news update podcast. Tanner, I got your information from Will Renke. He shot me out a text that said, hey, you got to get a hold of this guy. Just got back from Afghanistan on the evac, and I just shot out a text right away, and you were awesome to just reply. So why don't you, I guess, fill us in after our technical difficulties with what you were doing over there?
So I've been working over there as a security contractor, as a explosive detection canine handler. I've been there since April 1st. This is my second rotation. So I've been there about 5 months. I did another rotation last year, September of 2020 to January of 2021 is when I came back, small break, and then rotated back out. I was finishing up this rotation. I was due to go home on the 25th of August. And then obviously this whole evac happened in the middle of me on my way home, basically, and everything had to get moved up. So,
and yeah. Was there tellings of this early on, or did this just kind of blindside you guys, or what?
100%. This was definitely not something that just unfolded in 72 hours. You know, I looking at the media and looking from what I've seen of it, that's what it looks like. It looks like just in a couple of days, all of a sudden, Taliban was there in the capital and overran the entire country. That's not the case. We've been getting intel since April, May, and even before then, saying that Taliban is winning most of their battles. They're taking districts on a weekly basis, and they're not stopping, right? So you can start to see the map close in with all the districts and the Afghan National Army that, they did, I think a lot of it is said that they haven't done anything, and that's not true. Some of them have, but it just hasn't been enough. And the Taliban just came into overwhelming force and kept on gaining more and more momentum, winning more battles, and ANA just couldn't keep up. But this is definitely something that has been unfolding over 6 months plus and did not happen like that.
I think, Martin, you want to hit with your question?
Oh, yeah. I mean, before we got chopped off there a little bit, because I was wondering logistic-wise, and you said Bagram had closed down a month ago, but why they didn't, strategically move, assets, and did they not have time? Did they not have resources to, get that evac out through Bagram instead of the big mess you guys had?
Sure. So I just think that Bagram, since we closed that about a month ago, that I think considered it compromised. And the thing about Alvarado is we already had that set up. We also had HKI as well. So definitely both spots that we had forces already implemented on the ground. We have K9 guys that were working there and security contractors already set up. So, but when it came down to closing up Bagram, I still view that, in my opinion, as the worst strategic decision that they made in this decide to pull out of Afghanistan, this decision. And it made zero sense. It's like they forgot that there was a war going on when they closed up Bagram and pulled out all those resources, all of those troops, and that capability, putting the entire diplomatic and every American and anyone who had worked with the United States in danger and more danger because of that.
And basically, how long before you were out of there did they kind of tell you guys, like, all right, we're getting the fuck out of here?
Sure. So
what was that time period?
Gosh, so the 13th was the initial notification. That's when we got told the Taliban was 100 miles out and, we might all need to be ready to leave. So they were like, hey, we don't know exactly what, nothing solid's come down. This is like 1800 on the 13th, right? So that's typically when we get like our briefings around that time. And that's what came up. And it was just kind of this vague. And if you've worked in any kind of government capacity before, that's how it usually comes down. It's super vague. There's no information. There's no point of even asking questions because no one knows. And if you ask a question, there's no point because it's going to change within 2 hours. And that is what, from that moment on, every 2 hours we had conflicting information that was changing the situation rapidly. And we just had to adjust fire. And by the 14th was the main notification, was the, hey, this is it. We need to get out of here. Like, shit's about to go down, and we have little to no support already out here. I know that they had said that they were sending 3,000. I think the 13th is when they said that they were sending 3,000 troops to Afghanistan. Now, maybe they're there now, but they were not there then. So they did not get there. Whenever they said that they were sending them, there was less than 300 troops that were there. So that's all it was, honestly.
To evac everybody.
To evac everyone. And they didn't even really, I saw 10 guys that assisted with the evac when it came down to the helicopters and stuff. We already had those helicopters that we were using to already transport, because you know how the embassy's set up is the embassy is away from the Alvarado and Bagram, and so you have to helicopter over to evac out of the area. So that was something that resources we already had. That really wasn't something that came in to assist. Yeah, when I got to the airport, there was definitely some more Apaches and things like that. And that's kind of what you saw flying around the 17 as he was trying to get out of there and move those guys away. So, yeah, and then that's kind of what it was. The 14th was oh shit, we need to get out of here. And I flew out that night about 2300. I was at Alvarado 2330 or 2320. It's not a far ride. And our K9 guys were already there. We were there in the morning, and our flight was supposed to leave the 15th around 1500. But it went from the 13th, they said tally was 100 miles out, to the 14th that they're 50 and in, that they're basically here. So, and that's what you saw on the 15th, that they were there. So
what's protocol when that word comes down? What are you guys taking? What are you leaving? What are you doing with everything? What confidential shit are you covering up? You guys, clearly it's a fire drill, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened. The burn pits cooked up on the 14th, and we were just tossing everything we could get our hands on. We were burning. As far as vehicles, we weren't ready to disable those because we actually stripped them, getting them ready to possibly ground transport out. We didn't know. We were preparing to take care of our guys and our units and what we could fit in our vehicles and the dogs, because that's the thing. We had, it's over 60 dogs on the ground, right? Yeah. So there's a big canine force. So that's, it wasn't just guys that we were trying to get out of there. It was also those canines. And because we weren't leaving them behind at any cost, at anything that we were doing, we were fully prepared to get those dogs out of there no matter what it took. And that's why we didn't burn the vehicles or disable them, because we knew that we needed them just in case to get our guys out of there. So that was the 14th. That's when we didn't have helicopters rides. We didn't have that confirmed. And we were already preparing for secondary routes of travel just in case we needed to bug out and get to the airport.
What kind of stuff did you guys have to leave there?
We don't really have much as the K9 guys. Honestly, we had our kit, helmet, our rifle, pistol, ammo, and our dog. That's all that was really important. Everything else was just kind of personal effects and stuff like that. Anything with our name on it, we burned, and we just burned everything we could, didn't need, packed everything else up, and just got the dogs out of there. That was definitely our main concern for us. As far as weapons and equipment and things like that, all of that was took to Alvarado and either evac'd out. So I can speak for all of our guns and our equipment. We took that with us. We weren't going to let anybody get their hands on that.
Pretty much everything that, weapons, equipment that the Afghan army had, though. That's basically
That's
been
the problem.
confiscated off. Yeah.
That's all the equipment that they had. And that's the thing. Even when you do see us leave a lot, and I don't know if I'm sure you guys are familiar that it's pretty procedure to disable that equipment to where it's non-functional. So anything that we left behind, I would be really surprised to see if it was functioning. But the main issue is the Afghan National Army. Everything that we gave to them, they probably didn't disable it. And so that's where the biggest issue, transfer of equipment. And that's why you see these guys in the Capitol and they have ACOGs, they have updated AR-15s, they have, it looks like legitimate gear. And I think that's where most of it came from, is the Afghan National Army, unfortunately.
Did you have a lot of the Afghanis embedded with your guys?
As K9 handlers, no, that was definitely, we didn't have any Afghani K9 handlers. Now, they did work on the embassy, but they kind of worked in relation to I don't know if you're familiar with the Gurkha population. Yeah, so that was who we used primarily as our security force. We did have local nationals that worked with us, but we mostly worked with the Gurkha force that were part of the Kabul embassy security force.
How often were you guys getting out into town, out of the embassy? Was it daily?
So it depended on where you worked at. There was camps and assets that we had outside of the embassy. So I wouldn't say I spent a ton of time during out in the town just for my position that I worked. As far as operations that were worked outside of that, there was definitely some that were going on, but COVID had already minimized a lot of that. There wasn't a lot of movements going on around there, but I worked off the embassy. So I was frequently, daily, I would go off.
What was the kind of the attitude around the local population with what was going on?
They were definitely, I think that we had built a reputation up with the people there after being there for so long, and that they had just never seen. I mean, you got to think they developed that perception of us over 20 years and how we act and how we're kind of bolstered. We stick our heels in, we fight, right? So I do not think that they saw this coming in this past year about how we evacuated and everything like that, how we pulled out the troops and really stopped basically engaging the Taliban. So I think that they were still confident that, like we still had a really good reputation with them. I still think that they were confident that we were going to help them and we weren't actually going to leave. I think that was probably in most of their brains. I think most of them were like, I don't really think that they're going to go. And neither did we, to be honest.
Yeah.
This is going to be tough, moving in the future. I mean, who's going to trust us, right?
Exactly. That's the biggest thing. And, I always go back to this, something that really sticks with me is that this guy that worked at the dining facility, he spoke 4 different languages. You kind of build a relationship with these guys, and you definitely become friends with them. And I mean, somebody that had worked with us for so long and been employed at the embassy and worked at other spots and camps, and he'd been trying to get his visa approved for so long, and it didn't happen. And now exactly that's my thing is like, how can anyone trust us after this? Like, yeah, they trusted. Like, I guarantee you, if you still ask that guy if he trusted me or any of the guys that I worked with, he'd say, yes, I trust those guys on the ground because they're reliable. When I needed help from them, they always helped me. But when it came down to the leadership of our country, they failed those people. And every country that if we ever go anywhere else, if we ever go into, they're going to be hesitant to work with us. Why would they? Because then now look what happened. Now they're turned over, and the Taliban, and I talked to him personally, and he said they are looking for people that were working with the Americans, and they are hunting them down. So there you go. Sickening.
Yeah, Martin and I talked this morning a little bit about this, and the thing is there's a lot of different attitudes going around about all of this. There's the side that we lost, right? But that's bullshit, because all of the effort that's been put in there has saved thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, and they've been able to escape the country, and they've created education, made it into educational systems and are living good lives now. But like Martin said this morning, the goal there was never to win, basically. It was to educate the populace so that they then generations down the line can run their own country.
What we talked about this morning is that, you know it, right, Tanner? It's an illiterate population, right? And you can't, there's not education there. And it takes, maybe a good 50, 60 years before that turns. But, that was the process. It wasn't to win a war, but, to get these people some, foundation. And, it's just literally, 20 years of work wiped away.
Definitely. I still think that those people are there, but under Taliban rule, they will never let any of those principles that we implemented come into strong effect. They will literally kill their way through those people before they let any of those principles come into their teachings, and they will control everything that's backed up onto that. I saw the notification that they had pulled all the girls out of school. Even before then, this isn't something that we were like, oh, they stopped all this, we're going to go ahead and pull out. No, last year I was there when they had bombed the school. Right. So they went in there and killed 26 kids, and I saw them wrapped in the same blankets that I had on my bed, and that was just something that when you see that, it's just blows your mind, to come into that effect of come in, blow up the school and shoot these kids while they're in their classrooms. And you got all these kids that are trying to hop the wall. They're all working together to hoist each other up over the wall. That happened before we had done that. And I think as you saw more of a retreat or more of a pullout, that's going to become more frequent. And once we kind of go hands off with the Taliban and not keep that constant pressure on them of, hey, if you do this, we're going to bomb the hell out of you. We're going to come on strong. And, I think that's kind of the peace through strength of what I've believed in, and I think has worked for the majority of this war that we've had.
Yeah, and I think the question is, how many Americans are still on the ground right now? I've heard numbers of up to, 10,000 today. There's private groups, working to try to get them out. But, from what I've heard, there's been no action from our leadership or any words to, back that up. So, I don't know what that 10,000, can you elaborate on that? What that population is?
Sure. So, I had seen that number thrown around a lot, and I just don't know exactly in what occupation they're talking about. If they're talking about Americans that were just flat out living in Afghanistan, then okay, maybe that number is somewhere out there. I don't know where they're calculating that number at. I can say for the diplomatic side and for the security contractors and things like that, most of those guys are all off the ground. And we had less than that to defend we didn't have that much to defend the embassy even. So I don't know. I think that they have to be talking about Americans that are living in that area. But to my knowledge, I don't think a lot of them were living in that area. So I'm confused a little bit. I'd like to see the details on where they calculated that. I know that they had put out a couple of things online and social media, last second, that were like, hey, reach out to State Department. And, they put an email and, try to get in touch with and things like that. And that's, just the way that this was done was just the worst way possible to be so 72 hours. Okay, everyone out. Right. And if you're not like immediate embassy, then you're pretty screwed, when it comes down to it. Like, there should have been processes and plans in place. How many people do we have working on this mission of the pullout of Afghanistan? How many people do we have in the government? What are they doing? Because I don't know if they've done anything between this last 6 months. And that comes down from not just all the way to the top, but there's so many people working this mission that there was nothing set in place. Right. And I know General Miller, he advised against the pullout of Bagram. And this is why politicians shouldn't run wars. Look at the strategic decisions that they're making that are putting Americans at risk. That never should happen, ever, because they don't know what they're doing. They don't. I'm a dog handler, right? So I don't come in and try to tell an engineer that works on an oil tanker what to do, because that's his job. I let him do his job. I'm not an expert on that. And it was obvious that people that do know how to make these decisions and do know how to move troops around in a right strategic way without putting a lot of people at risk, they weren't making these decisions, unfortunately.
It doesn't seem like there was any. It doesn't seem like there was any sort of like pre-planning or vetting of all of. Okay, we have this many people here. We need to get out here. We have this many, friendlies working in the area. I mean, realistically, the minute that they start deciding that they're going to pull out, like
exactly,
the end game isn't we're going to pull out and the country is going to be safe for everyone to be there, right? Like we know when we start dropping down forces that it's going to be a mess. Like immediately when that happens, there should have been somebody in place to start planning who needs to get the fuck out of there.
Exactly. Yeah, and that wasn't happening. That's not something that had happened in the time that even if we would have started a month ago, right? How much could we have got done in a month ago? And okay, for whatever paperwork reason, we can't get these visas done for these guys that have worked with us for 20 years and fought with us, in their own country in a civil war, basically. Let's move them somewhere. I mean, how many allied forces do we have? How many areas? How many immigrants do we let in from the southern border that have never done anything for us? And I'm not against immigrants coming in to, through the southern border at all whatsoever. I think there's a proper way to do it. And I understand that. I want them to do the proper way as well. But we can still move them. We can still find a spot for them. They'd be safe, at least. They'd be safe. They wouldn't be hunted down. And as far as getting them out now, there should be evac points somewhere. Multiple options, right? We can set up. We have so many resources. We have so many allied. Let's get them on the outskirts of the city. Let's get those spots protected. Let's say, hey, if you come near this spot, you try to attack us, we will blow you to kingdom come. But we are going to get our guys out of there, and if you don't want to mess with us, then don't touch any of those people, because we're going to come in and get them at whatever it takes. But
yeah, even across arbitrary borders, because from what I understand, there's like the people that live there, the borders that we impose or the rest of the world imposes on those countries, like those are bullshit borders. They right across back and forth.
Oh yeah.
We set the arbitrary borders and can't operate off this border, can't operate across this border, and
yeah,
I mean,
lines on a map.
Use that to our advantage.
Exactly. Yeah. And we could get them in there.
Yeah. Versus,
I think it's obvious that the Taliban does not want to engage U.S. forces based on the response that they've had for the over a year, of almost a year of me being there. I had really not seen them try to engage with us. They want us to leave because they knew the only thing standing in between them and taking back their country was us. So why provoke the one thing keeping, because if they didn't want to chance the fact that, hey, they might actually come back in and be like, no, they are a threat. Taliban right now is showing that they're not necessarily a threat to the U.S. That relationship could go sour at the drop of a pin, but it's still something that we should still get these guys out of there that helped us, because they will be dead in 6 months, if not sooner, if we do not get them out.
Yeah, this administration, I don't understand. I mean, they keep acting like they're just talking to the Taliban. And I mean, those guys aren't talkers. I mean, these guys are just going to impose their will. They're going to lie, do whatever it takes. I mean, they have their own agenda, and they're going to do it no matter what. So, yeah, it's sad. And
it's disappointing. Yeah, it's and that's what, like, I see a lot of guilt and shame from a lot of guys that, they kind of initially kind of get that thought in their head of, why did I even go? Why did I sign that dotted line? Why did I go down there? But I think just reminding them that I'm proud of them personally. I'm proud of the ones that have fought down there. I'm proud of the ones that have created 2 generations, or multiple generations, 20 years of mostly peace, where girls could go to school and live that type of life. And I think it's something that their country and their people should want to fight for. And I do believe that, it kind of gets blanket statement of, they don't want to fight. They don't, want to do that. And I disagree. There are some fighters out there that really did try, and some of them gave their lives for that cause too, and that means something. So I don't think we didn't go there for anything. I think we killed a lot of terrorists. I think we did a lot of good things, and whenever we decided to pull out, that's its own thing, but it's unacceptable for the way that this administration handled this evacuation of Afghanistan and evacuation of the embassy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you're just handing over, existing infrastructure now.
Exactly. Blow it up. Damn it. Who gives a shit? If you're going to leave it, I don't want to leave them a round. I don't want to leave them a 5.56 round, let alone billions of dollars of taxpayer money that's sitting in there with the tall buildings and vehicles and all that, depending on what we left. And they had already said, I believe their last stance on it, that they have no intentions of destroying any U.S. equipment that was left behind in any way, shape, or form. So, I mean, how many countries do we need to evacuate? How many embassies do we need to evacuate and leave before we get good at this? I mean, we've been at war for how long? Since the beginning. I mean, America was founded in a war, right? So the fact that we haven't gotten any better at this and learned from our mistakes in Vietnam and all these issues, and for him to come on and make statements that you'll never see an American or anyone getting lifted off the top of an embassy. And there you go. You got it right there. Now you got Afghans that are flying off of our airplanes at the airport because there was no perimeter security. And this is kind of what goes to how much they had left to defend our assets that we had. Is we didn't have airport security. We didn't have enough. We did not have perimeter security on the ground when we were trying to get our guys out of there on the 15th. So that shows some extreme concern of where's the strategic? I mean, do we forget we're in Afghanistan for 6 months or whatever it is? Do we forget where we're at? Because we're still there. And this is what you get. This is the consequences of letting politicians make these kind of strategic decisions.
Yeah. But yet nobody's accountable, right?
Nope, no one is accountable. Who's going to get held accountable for this? I say this all the time. I say, if I came up to my job and I put people in danger, if I let a bomb go through or anything like that, I'd be fired in a heartbeat, possibly put in jail. But these politicians can do this and make these decisions. And we have people flying off airplanes that are dying and getting hunted down that worked with the U.S. And there will probably be no accountability for this, honestly. And it's disgusting.
Yeah.
One of the big problems is new war is nothing like old war, right? Like old war, when you talk about like Alexander the Great and the Soviets, and like you go in and you conquer a country and you take it over and you make it yours, right? That's not how war is done anymore. War is done as to go in and try to build a people up and educate a people, especially like with this and with Iraq and everything, and make them safe and try to Americanize them to the point that they then run their own country. Well, nobody's figured out how to do that yet. No. Mm-hmm. That's not something that there's no playbook for that yet.
Definitely not an easy task. I agree with that. And that's kind of what, Martin was talking about of building that foundation of these principles and then letting them take over, and to kind of let all of that go now. It seems like just such a terrible option. I mean, it kind of goes back to, okay, so America doesn't want to be the one that's leading this fight anymore. That's fine. How many superpowers are we allied with that can take over, that agree with these same principles and these same values and agree that we need in that area? And however you need to convince them of whatever it is, because we still planned on sending money and resources to Afghanistan. We never, and we still probably will after this in some way, shape, or form. Good Lord, hope it's not to the Taliban, but that definitely could be something that has been happening. I'm not 100% sure. That's above my pay grade, right? My intelligence level. But there's a bunch of allied forces that could take the lead for that charge. And you know what? Okay, we did it for 20 years and we led the fight along with a few major players. Somebody else needs to come in and rotate. Somebody else take the next 10 years, next 5 years, and do a 5-year contract with that allied country or whatever it is, and have them come in. As soon as they're in, then we could leave. And keep up that fight. And then eventually, over time, it is going to extinguish that out. It's just going to take a lot longer than 20 years. People are like, gosh, 20 years. That is such a minuscule amount of time for how long that region has been at war with themselves over religion and all of these principles that they have. They've been fighting for hundreds and hundreds of years. And we cannot think that 20 years is fully going to change that.
you can't think like Alexander the Great failed, right? The Soviets failed, Britain failed. Like what we're just going to do the same fucking thing and think that it's going to magically. I mean, this is a multi-generational investment, is what it needed to be, and that's scary. That's scary as fuck to say. Multi-generational. Like we needed to be there for 60, 70 years, or somebody fighting for human rights, because that's what this is, right? It's human rights.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, now there's the primary mission the primary objective was that 9/11 happened. Terrorists came in and they killed Americans. We weren't going to let that slide. The primary objective, in my opinion, of this war was to come in and kill terrorists and held the people responsible. We came in, we killed a bunch of terrorists, got Osama bin Laden, right? And now, while we wanted to do that, we wanted to do more than just that. We weren't just going to come into a country because America was supposed to be better than that. Because America was better than that. We're not just going to come in here and kill a bunch of people. We're actually going to try to make your country better. We're going to let girls go to school. We're going to create these foundational principles that your society can live on and be a peaceful society with each other and live and prosper, right? Bring them the American dream to the Afghanistan dream that every country should be able to have. So we were going to do more than that, right? So I think that we hit our primary objective, but how we handled our secondary and so on objectives like that, we definitely missed the mark on that, and didn't get to continue that. I think that's the biggest part of that.
Yeah. So how are you doing? I mean, now that you're home, it's probably been like a tornado. Been on podcasts and
yeah, I can't even. I don't know. It's like because I've come home before and it's like it's great. You're home, back in the States. I get to see my wife, get to see my family, go have some beers and just relax for a second. And this one, I feel completely different. I come back, I'm upset, I'm angry. I feel like I know guys that are still there that have been let down, and for the first time, I don't want to be here. I want to be over there. Yeah. And I want to be helping in any way I can, because it's obvious that politicians aren't going to help. But when you're there and you can see somebody that needs your help and you can affect change with your hands, there's no paperwork to get started. There's no process. There's no email. There's no phone call. You get out there and you go help that person in need. And that's what I want to be doing right now. And unfortunately, I'm just not at that position to be doing it right now. But so I feel like shit, to be honest. I go through moments of being happy and being myself, and then next minute I'm on edge and I'm just ready to get back into it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of guys I think they're feeling that way right now. Just get a plane and get over there and get something done.
Yeah, something. Yeah. And I know that there's groups over there that are doing it right now, and they're can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, there's definitely some small groups in there with probably little to no funding that are in there trying to get people out and doing anything that they can. That's affecting change. That's doing something. That's the American way. And people's perception of America, those are what an American is to me. Is somebody that goes in there and that helps people that have no shield, that don't know how to help themselves, and they go in there. And we get a lot of scrutiny as America coming in and, to these other spots in the world that aren't ours. But if you go talk to those people that are there, if you go talk to those Afghan, why would they be hanging off planes? They hated us that bad. If those people loved us, they really did. They still do. They still love us. And honestly, I'm sure there's some that feel a different way about it, but we helped a lot of families out there. And, I think that for the most part, no one else is doing it. Look at a country like China. God forbid anyone talk about China in a bad way in social media in any optic, any way, shape, or form. They don't care. They have all the mineral rights, right? So they came in, they have all the mineral rights. Now they're sitting there. Now they're happy. They don't care who's in charge. It doesn't matter to them. They just know that now that the U.S. isn't involved, now they can just pay off whoever the hell they want and take all the minerals and take that. I mean, they want to dog on America for what we're doing. We didn't try to take all their resources so they could thrive. What do you think China's going to do? You think they're going to give that back to Afghanistan? No, those people of Afghanistan are not going to be able to prosper like that. But maybe after 50, 70 years of us doing this process and them start to get manufacturing and mining, they could have been a global powerhouse, right? Yeah. But nobody wants that to happen because everyone's trying to bring up all those resources that they possibly can. So now China's rolled in. They don't care. We're out now. And they're going to pay off whoever and take all those resources from those people. But you're not going to see that on the news. Yeah. You're not going to see about that scrutiny. No, but
yeah, they're going to go in there and they're going to pay pennies on the dollar for everything they can to the fucking 50 people that are in charge. And everybody else is going to suffer. It's not going to be an economy. It's going to be 50 guys that run,
no jobs.
Taliban armed forces getting super wealthy, and that's it.
And they'll keep all of it, and they'll live in their nice little palaces, and they'll be that top 1%. And then their people won't have jobs. They'll still continue to be poor, still continue to be oppressed, and their little girl is in fear of getting sold into child sex slavery on top of that. So there you go.
Yeah, we're getting some feeds last night from some of the missionaries and churches that are down there, and just some of what they're imposing on them is to there's females. If there's a female in the household, they got to put an X in the door frame, and what they're doing with them obviously is going to be related to the sex trade. There's more details on that. Don't really want to discuss here, but it's just. I look back at, we used to be a country that if there's a, American on the ground, I mean, we'd scorch earth to get them out.
Yep. And
now it's like, you go back to Benghazi, it's like, we got a State Department, we got, administration that's willing to just leave people behind. I mean, it's just, I can't tell you how it just pisses me off from, hour to hour.
It's unacceptable. Yeah. It's insane. I mean, and it just shows how fast America can change, and it can go from where we would do anything and do whatever it takes. And I think that also builds that reputation. It built that, hey, you probably shouldn't mess with that embassy, mess with that unit or anything like that. It protects the guys that are on the ground. And when you start doing strategic decisions like this, countries and enemy forces are going to recognize this, and once they sense weakness, they're just like any other animal in the jungle, any other animal in the forest. When a predator senses that something else is weak, they will attack. Now, so it just makes these guys even more in danger on the ground. But they don't get that, right? Because they're not there. They're not seeing it. And even people that aren't there aren't seeing it. It doesn't, there's so many people that haven't been to Afghanistan. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with still being like, hey, it's still common sense. It's still something that you can care about without having to go there. But they're also, the people that care about that stuff are the people that listen to the guys that are on the ground, listen to the guys that have been there and understand how these people work, how the Taliban's mind thinks, how our enemy thinks. And once they understand that, they know that there's things that we should do and shouldn't do. Now, if these politicians simply just don't listen at all to anyone on the ground, and you kind of see that coming from like a military background to myself, it was also lost in transition between a chief and an E4, so you would see a lot of that not even happen from such a small gap to the top. So there's a lot that needs to be fixed here, and it's be interesting to see what happens, because we've had these issues before, and what have we done to fix them until now? And this is, you see the results of lack of preparedness and still not doing the same thing, or still not doing what needs to get done. It's insanity. That's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. How are we expecting a different result? We're not changing anything. So something needs to change.
So let's fix politics right now. We got 15 minutes. Let's fix American politics right here.
Term limits.
Term limits.
No lobbying.
Yep.
There's two right there that would be able to affect
campaign funding reform.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think that. only people that are in a wealthy basis should be able to go, because that's kind of where it comes from. So like the super wealthy, that are in America, how detached are they from the 90% of people below them? How do they understand that struggle? I know Eli Crane. I know he's out of Arizona, and he's running as a Navy SEAL. So I think that's a great start. Let's get somebody that's just a normal guy that started a business and provided for his family and is doing great things out of Arizona. And let's start putting our backing behind those people. I talked about this on another podcast. I'm personally a person that stays away from politics, or has stayed away from politics. But you know what? I'm here now. And I can't just be quiet about this. I just got home, and the first thing I wanted to do, and that's why I texted Will, and I was like, hey man, get me on a podcast. I need to talk about this. We need to get this out. Everyone needs to hear about this, and we need to get moving and start. I don't know exactly how to fix it. I really don't. And I don't think anyone does, but I think that we need to change up what we're doing. And, we need to get more involved with politics. We need to elect guys like Eli that are there for the people, because they are the people, right? I mean, when you hear our administration come up in front of a mic and say that the government is the people,
right?
No, they're not.
Yeah.
They're not. They're supposed to work for the people.
There's a large portion of our population that needs to just wake up. Their eyes need to open up. They need to quit giving a fuck about, their screen time and their filling their fat faces full of donuts, and just open their eyes and see what's going on. And hopefully, we're not going to do that just ourselves here, but thousands and thousands and thousands of these podcasts recorded, hours and hours and hours, and guys like Dan Crenshaw, Tim Kennedy, Jack Carr, and all these guys that are doing this in a way larger format than we are. Hopefully enough people do open their eyes and see that, it's hundreds of thousands of people like us throwing $50 towards the right type of people is going to accumulate much larger in the short term to make changes than the maximum campaign contributions that the super wealthy can, but
that are tied to something.
But we have to do it. It has to actually be done.
Sure. It has to be a constant thing. I mean, we talk about how fast our country's changed and our kind of who we are, or who leads us. I think who leads us has changed, and the whole America First concept has changed. But I still believe in my heart. I go down the street, I go knock on my neighbor's door that I've never met before, and he's a great guy. He's a great person. I go see somebody at the grocery store. They're good people. They're good-hearted people. There's still, I still see fighters. I still see people with heart. So I still think that the heart of America is still there. I just think that somebody else is leading us in the wrong direction right now. And just as quickly as they change the direction, we can change it back. And we can start electing those people that are making the right decisions, that are putting America first, that don't have money tied to agreements and things like that, that are going to bring it back to where it was at. Or, you know what? If you didn't like where it was at, let's make it better then. Let's actually make it better. But this isn't the way. And on every aspect that we can see, all of our food prices, so our cost of living is skyrocketed, and for the living, the living wage, gas, everything has gone up. I came back and I was like, what happened? Right? But we all know what happened, right? These jobs and becoming energy reliant and all that is getting shoved to outside countries. A pipeline isn't okay here in the United States, but it's okay in Russia.
Yeah.
I just saw yesterday $72 billion worth of this budget is going to put, make auto plants available to create electric cars and to put in electric charging stations everywhere. So that's why all these companies like GM are like, yeah, we'll make electric cars. Sure. Why not? Government's paying to change all of our plants over. Why wouldn't we?
Cheaper for them, less efficient, higher profit margin. They can fire more people. They have less people to do that. I mean, I lost, if talking about COVID, I'm a small business owner myself, right? Or I was, right? Until COVID came down, and don't worry, Amazon and Walmart. I mean, it was actually plan Z for me to go overseas and go take this job as a canine handler. I was going to come home and start a business and, or continue my business, hire on employees. And provide for my family that way. And COVID happened, and they shut down the entire economy, and Walmart didn't get shut down. Amazon got richer, right? So when people are like, well, Amazon agrees with minimum wage. Well, no shit, they agree with it. They're the only ones that can afford the minimum wage getting raised. And you just crush how many small businesses and gym owners and everything like that. And they can't afford to pay somebody minimum wage like that if you raise it up high enough. But of course, you're going to need to raise the minimum wage because you're raising the cost of living by 25-35%.
And I don't know if it's an issue by you, but by us, minimum wage is non-existent. It doesn't matter because you can't, even if you paid $10 an hour, $8 an hour, you can't hire a fucking soul. Right now, you're paying $16 an hour and you can't hire a soul. I mean, I don't know if you guys have gone to a restaurant lately. There's absolutely no servers available.
I went to Walmart and I was like, you know what was crazy, dude? I went to Walmart and the lady that helped me in the lawn center was 68 years old, 70 years old. I went up to the register. She was 67 years old, learned how to work all the equipment. I had to go to customer service because my order didn't pan out and something had an issue with the card reader. She sorted me all out and she got me over there, and there was a 65-year-old man. Look at this working generation that is still working their asses off, right? And they are working just as hard as anyone my age or younger. And it's just like, I'm blown away. That this working generation is still supporting America. And they're all drawing Social Security. Most of them should be drawing retirement because they're the last ones that'll probably have retirement and things like that available to them outside the military and a couple of other corporations. But it's insane,
Yeah, but the feds are handing out money, and people are taking the easy way out, and it's the feds are also causing a lot of distraction. The media is not helping at all. I think it's, you got to get your story out there, but you got to be louder than the media. And how do we accomplish that? That's a question.
That's what we got. Conversations like this. That's what we're trying to do. We talk all the time about not taking the comfortable way out. I mean, it's every fucking podcast we cover. That is not taking the comfortable way, not taking the easy way, and working for pride, right? Like those people, they probably don't need to work. Those people that helped you at Walmart, realistically, but they're working because they don't want to just sit at fucking home and collect the check. They want to go home and feel proud of their day.
Yeah. They do. They want to have purpose. Yes. If you get paid at home to just exist and sit there and watch Netflix and be a consumer and pump your money into these large corporations, it's not living. You ask those people that do that, they're not happy. They aren't. They're just doing because they don't know what else is out there. Get outside, get your hands into something that means something to you. And I'll tell you what, I would trade being able to help a person over $1,000 any day of the week. I really would, because that feeling makes me feel alive, makes me feel like I'm worth something as a man, and just in general as an American. That's what I was raised on,
So quick, we got like 13 minutes left, 10 minutes left. What's it like to work with the dogs?
It's amazing. It keeps you going, I'll tell you that, when you can deal with all this kind of stuff. But having a morale booster like that, I mean, since I've been a dog handler since halfway through my military career in the Air Force, and spent quite a bit of time working so many different dogs, and it kept me going because I had to put up with being in the military. So it's amazing. They are truly such a huge asset, and they're needed on the ground everywhere. I think that their capability, they've tried to throw so many machines at the embassies and other places that I've worked, and they never work. They always fail, and they always come back to the dogs because the dogs are solid. So truly, I'm really blessed, honestly, to work with the dogs that I have and the people in that community.
What kind of dogs are you mostly working with?
Malinois.
Mostly Shepherds and Malinois. They've kind of moved away from Shepherds, in my opinion. The puppy program down at Lackland, they're doing a lot of Mals, but I got a soft spot in my heart for Sheps. I still think that they got the best nose. They're too smart though. That's why the military is grabbing Malinois, because they're more like a tool, in my opinion. Of they kind of just do whatever they're told, and a Shepherd will look at you and be like, I don't know. How about you go do that? So they're really, Mals are the best patrol dogs in my opinion. I think Malinois, best patrol dogs, best detection dogs are Shepherds in my opinion. Better nose.
That's awesome.
Anything else, Martin?
How's your family? Everybody doing okay? You got a wife at home?
Yeah, got a wife, got
glad you're
mom,
home.
dad, brother, sister. Yeah, everyone's super glad that I'm home. I got, friends that are, they kind of do that same thing. They're like, I'm glad you're home. And they kind of get me off to the side and they're like, how are you doing though? And, I think that's definitely good that you got to do with everyone, because everyone's response is, when you're like, how are you? Good. That's just a typical response, especially being a guy, because we're always good. But, it's definitely good to open up to the people that everyone kind of has their own personal thing that they, I deal with a lot of things internally, and my wife is my rock. She's what gets me through everything. She's been through all of this, and she was actually the only person that wasn't freaking out while I was gone during all this. Because I said, hey, I got this. We're good. We're prepared. We've been planning for this for quite some time, and we're prepared no matter what. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to get back. And I made that promise that said I'm always going to come back. And so far I've been able to keep it. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's what you need.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks for getting in here and having this conversation with us today. It's going to take, hundreds of thousands of these conversations, but I really think we can wake everybody up and kind of give them the idea of what it's going to take to become, America again, not just a nation of slobs that sit around and watch Netflix.
Definitely. And if anybody, I know not familiar with a lot of your viewers and things like that. I'm sure you guys all feel the same way, but if anyone's kind of feeling that same frustration and they don't have somebody that they can reach out to, I'd like to open myself up completely as a resource, and I'll hop on a call, I'll go grab a beer, whatever you need to kind of get this squared away in your head where, you can find your peace, because everyone needs to find their peace, and you can't let, we got to keep moving along, man. We got more work to do. We got a lot of stuff that we need to get done. And part of that is taking care of yourself and your mental well-being. So that's super important.
Exactly.
Awesome. I'm gonna